President Biden just signed the American Rescue Plan Act into law. The Pandemic Response Accountability Committee will oversee implementation of the latest coronavirus relief bill while continuing to try to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the CARES Act. Michael Horowitz is chair of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee and Inspector General at the Justice Department. Thanks for joining me. Let's start by talking about how you've tracked spending so far. What have you put in place for the previous stimulus bills?
So when the CARES Act was passed a year ago, which created the PRAC, we were obligated to set up within 30 days, and we did a website. I hope the public goes there, pandemicoversight.gov, and it's there to allow the public to see where the money has gone. How's that money been spent? You can track it through to various degrees, depending upon the nature of the information that has been collected by the government, but it's the one place that people can go with complete data about how spending has been undertaken over the past year in the prior bills, which amount about $3.5 trillion in those multiple bills.
It certainly sounds like a challenge to gather that level of data. What have been sort of the pieces that have been more difficult to bring together to provide that transparency?
It has certainly been a challenge, and perhaps the biggest challenge has been the sufficiency or lack of sufficiency in some instances for how agencies have collected recipient reporting information. So one of the things we noted early on were some of the challenges SBA was having in collecting data related to the PPP program. That information has been released over time with more information being made available. But one of the things we did was commission a report that is on our website that we issued last November about 16 data gaps that needed to be addressed. And we've been working recently with OMB to try and address those so that better information can be collected by agencies when they issue these monies, when they send this money out, because we all want to both ensure accountability, make sure the money is getting to the right place, but then also try and understand what kind of impact it had. And you can't do that unless you know where the money went and how it was used.
Absolutely. Have you made progress in addressing those identified gaps?
So we've made progress in the last several weeks in working with OMB to try and figure out how to do that better. And we've undertaken on our own, for example, Treasury OIG, in connection with one of this funding streams, built a recipient reporting tool. And so you can go to our website and see that information. That's the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which was about $150 billion in the CARES Act and is $350 billion in the ARP bill that was signed yesterday by President Biden. And you can see that information down to the zip code level where that money went. And so that's the kind of information we want to make sure we can get to the public, but it's going to require working with agencies across the executive branch. And this is where OMB is critical to this effort, to make sure that kind of information is being collected so that we can report it out and the public can know where the money went.
Will the committee then be able to use the framework essentially that you've put in place to track this new spending?
It will, and one of the things that the bill signed yesterday does is it provides us with the funding we sought to also create what we're calling the Pandemic Analytics Center of Excellence, the PACE, so that we can create our own analytics tool that will allow IGs to leverage this data along with other data that's available to us as inspectors general to both inform the public about how the money has been used and whether it's been used well and had an impact, but also to ensure that there's accountability. And we're going to use all the tools we have available to us as IGs, and we have many, the most obvious being the criminal tool that you've seen so many reports about, unfortunately, about criminal cases being brought with our partners at other federal by other federal law enforcement agencies, and working with them, like the FBI and others, with the U.S. attorneys. But we also have the ability as IGs to work with civil division prosecutors, which we're partnering with, to look at False Claims Act and other ways to recover money, as well as use our suspension and debarment tools. So we're going to do all of those, and the funding we received in the most recent bill will help us build that analytics platform that'll help us advance those efforts as well.
Is that platform primarily intended for IGs, or is it also something that will be available to the public?
So the platform itself is intended for IGs to use. It obviously will have data that is sensitive data that Privacy Act protections surround, other protections surround. So we can't simply make that available to the public, but what we can do is make derivative information that we gather and obtain and glean from that available to the public. And that's what we're going to do, and that's where pandemicoversight.gov comes in, because it's the place where you can see not only where the spending has been, but you can see all of the accountability work that we've conducted, and by the way, GAO's conducted, because we've worked with GAO to partner with them to make sure their work is also showing up on that website. So the public can marry up and see where the money went and what our accountability reports are saying about that funding.
With just about 15 seconds to go, what do you think the timeline is for that platform?
So it's going to be iterative. So we're looking to start building it out right away. Obviously, some of it will take more time than other parts. For example, we want to start promptly getting data sets available so that IGs can look across agencies and do the kind of cross-cutting work that we're intended to do as IGs. In other words, make sure that what's going on at SBA with PPP loans isn't being used in some way improperly through other means that we might be able to identify if we had, for example, various data in other agencies or in other organizations. And so we're looking to do that kind of effort as early as we can, while we continue to build a platform with other tools that we might be able to use that are perhaps more sophisticated and require greater effort before we can launch them.
Thanks very much for joining me.
Absolutely. Great to be here again.